reach unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. They kicked me out of the studio again. No, I'm just kidding. As I told you guys last week, a lot of improvements, upgrades coming to the Guerilla Sports Studios as we barrel ever closer to the start of not only the NFL season here in 3 weeks, NFL regular season, 2 weeks. I don't even know what day it is anymore, folks. But we are getting closer and closer to the open of NHL training camps, NBA training camps, which means the preseasons and regular seasons for each of those leagues as well. So we're wanting to make sure that everything is dialed in at the Guerilla Sports Studios for you guys to make sure that we can bring you guys the highest quality content, the best looking stuff, the best sounding stuff. And speaking of the best sounding stuff, just realizing that my mic wasn't set to the right mic. So want to make sure that this is pleasurable for your ears. Got a lot to get into today. Couple things I want to revisit that the great Liv Moods talked about yesterday. But there's a lot to unpack. And just like there were some topics last week, Liv talked about, we're going to talk again about Noah Lyles. And the reason I'm bringing it up again today, I was sitting in the control room with Jay, who's running our show again today. And as Liv was talking about what Noah Lyles had said about the world champions of what, calling out the NBA, Liv was giving her take on it, which I highly encourage you to go listen to. And the whole time she was talking, I was looking at Jay like, nah, I disagree with this. I completely disagree with this. The show ended, and Jay and I both went out onto the studio floor and we're like, hey, great show as always. Good job. Loved it. Completely disagree. You're dead wrong. So we're going to talk about that today because we had a fun conversation with Liv. I want to talk a little bit about Jordan Chiles, U.S. gymnast who, man, I don't even fully know how to break down this controversy. She was the beneficiary of a scoring controversy to start. Now it looks like that's kind of going the opposite direction. She's being stripped of her bronze medal. So we're going to talk about that. I want to take a little bit, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it because Liv talked about the fact that the U.S. and China tied for 40 gold medals apiece at the Olympics. I want to just peel back a layer on that a little bit, talk a little bit about the Olympic medaling system, how the U.S. has done. This was a bit of a historic medal count finish for the U.S. and China. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But we are going to start here in North America. We're going to talk NFL and then a little bit of drama in the NHL as the St. Louis Blues shake up the offseason. But we are going to start here locally. I want to talk a little bit about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. We had our entire show yesterday. Nate Jackson, Brandon Cristal, Liv Moods yesterday unpacked this entire weekend, this entire preseason game. Bo Nix as well as the other two quarterbacks. Make sure you guys right here on the Guerilla Sports YouTube channel or on our X, check that out. Great conversation as always. That show is just getting better and better and better every time those three do a new episode. I imagine by the end of the Broncos season, they'll be one of the go-tos here in Denver for Broncos news and coverage. But let's talk about Bo Nix. Is there hope? Is there optimism in Broncos country? No, it can't be. It can't be, right? It can't be legitimate optimism. You guys have heard me talk about in years past that this Broncos fan base and media core is one of the most interesting in pro sports to me. I have never seen a fan base that is so eternally optimistic, completely misplaced, right? We've had a decade of not mediocre football, not, oh man, that's disappointing, of terrible football in Denver. This Denver Broncos team has been an absolute train wreck since they won Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning at the helm. Peyton Manning retired, and this organization has been completely directionless. It's been the lack of success season to season has been the most predictable thing possible when you've looked at how these teams have been built and put together. I have felt that there has been so much misplaced and misguided optimism around this team for the last 10 years that I honestly couldn't believe how every year, we had media members talking themselves into Case Keenum being like, oh, here we go. We're saved. Finally. Case Keenum is in town. Oh, nice. The Seattle Seahawks couldn't wait to get rid of Russell Wilson because he's so beyond washed up. Thank goodness he's here. I haven't been able to understand it. But I watched this game on Sunday between the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts. And yes, Bo Nix didn't play the entire game, only threw 21 passes, didn't start. But holy smokes, it felt like there's a direction. It felt like the rebuild is not only underway, but it's well on its way. And it's on its way to maybe a bit of a resurgence. Bo Nix, 15 for 21, throwing for 125 yards with 1 touchdown. Is that the absolute best stat line you've ever heard in your life? No, absolutely not. But for a guy who was coming in as a first-round pick with the pressure on to perform, knowing that you are in a legitimate quarterback competition looking for a starting role with 2 other players. One is the incumbent, started games for the Denver Broncos last year. And the other, look, say what you want to say about Zach Wilson. And the career definitely has not gotten off to the start that he wanted. But this is, again, a former first-round pick who's been in the league several years, who is looking to redeem his career and get it back on the right track. You guys, if you follow me for Colorado Avalanche coverage, you know that Zach Wilson is the exact type of player that the Colorado Avalanche would love. Here's a player with a lot of skill, a lot of upside, was once a very highly touted prospect that it just hasn't quite worked out for yet. Can we get something better out of him? So those are what Bo Nix is going up against. The depth chart, the unofficial depth chart comes out earlier in the week. Bo Nix listed at 3rd. There was definitely a universe out there in the multiverse that played out where Bo Nix went out and really struggled. Maybe fumbled the ball, maybe threw an interception, just didn't look himself. And this entire week is chaos for Denver media. But the opposite. The reviews are in, and they're almost unanimous. Bo Nix was great. I've seen nothing but commentary saying this guy has already earned the week 1 starter job. Just pencil him in, give him the reps. It's done. It's Bo Nix's job. He's been announced already as the starter for preseason week 2, which is coming up this Sunday. So he'll go through this entire week taking starter reps, going through QB1 progressions. I think you have to be optimistic about Bo Nix. Now, here is the thing that I want to make sure people out there understand and are braced for. Is that the way that I want to put it? I was having this conversation yesterday with our very own Nate Jackson. And, we've got a really fun, I'm excited to get it rolled out. We've got a fun piece of recurring content that we're going to have coming for you guys this week. This season, it'll be every week. Nate Jackson, and we're going to do just a little bit of it. We're going to peel back the layers on some of this stuff. We're not just going to talk about, the opinions on why we think things are good or bad or why things work or why they don't. We want to peel back those layers a little bit and show you, hey, this isn't going well, or this is going well, and here's why. Here's what the Broncos are doing. Here's what they're not doing. Here's why. And one of the conversations I was having with him was, I said, I think it's going to be one of those things this year where there's probably going to be a lot of games where Bo Nix, the stat line isn't going to be very good. The numbers aren't going to be very encouraging, but there's going to be context for that. Make no mistake, when I said off the top that it feels like there is reason for optimism, I wholeheartedly believe that. I also believe this Broncos team is embracing a bit of a rebuild for the first time ever. I remember once hearing on the radio since Super Bowl 50, in between Super Bowl 50 and now, there's a radio host who said, the Broncos really should rebuild, but rebuilds aren't acceptable in Denver. The Broncos don't rebuild. Well, then in that case, the Broncos are really bad for a decade. You see how that kind of works? That being said, I feel like they're rebuilding, and I feel like they have a direction, and I feel like they're going with the youth. But that means there's some pain that comes with that. Yes, you can have a player who, if that's what the first showing that we saw out of Bo Nix, he's only going to get better, and the confidence is only going to go up. And by year 2, I'm not saying that this is the next Tom Brady necessarily, but you may actually be staring down, okay, perfect. We've got a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. Not every quarterback is elite. Not every quarterback is going to be a Pro Bowler. Not every quarterback is going to be a first team All-Pro. But can you get a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL? It looks like that's maybe what they have with Bo Nix, but everyone be ready. You're going to have to take the good with the bad this season for Bo Nix. He's a rookie. He's going to be learning. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be mistakes. And there's going to be games that don't go very well. There's also going to be games that aren't very pretty. Part of the reason why I've advocated for maybe giving Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson the weeks 1, 2, or 3 start. Let Bo Nix see what that real-life NFL game speed is like. Not preseason where you're dealing with a bunch of guys who are either fighting for jobs or practice squad guys or, third and second string guys. Let him see what that full speed is like, because I feel optimistic about what the Denver Broncos have in Bo Nix. Not that I have any rooting interest or, matters anything to me. But as someone who lives in this town and is in the media and talks with folks and hears it every single summer, oh man, the Broncos are fixed. This one player. This isn't a one-player fix, but it feels like the Denver Broncos are on the right track. And it's encouraging to see. And for a player that leading up to the draft, there was a lot of people that said, don't take him in the first round. You can get him in the second round. Well, there was a run on quarterbacks in the first round. Bo Nix was there. The Denver Broncos got their guy, and it looks like they're going through this process the right way for the first time. Gosh. You can maybe even argue including Peyton Manning. I've made the argument before. John Elway didn't really build those teams. Peyton Manning built those teams. And going out and landing a future Hall of Famer in free agency isn't necessarily like getting it right at quarterback. That's just great business. And that's an awesome stroke of luck. It feels like the Denver Broncos, especially when it comes to drafting and developing a quarterback, might be on the right track after what we've seen from, in 1 week preseason out of Bo Nix. It's going to be very telling how he responds this week as the listed starter. Going to, take this entire week to go through those progressions. We're going to see how he responds with a little bit more added pressure to his shoulders. Now, something else you may notice about this photo here of Bo Nix is the jersey. That's right. The Denver Broncos debuted their new kits this past weekend. We finally got our look at the first change since the 90s coming to the Denver Broncos uniform, outside of some very minor color tweaks as the materials of the jerseys changed. The navy jerseys used to be the primary homes. That change was made in the mid 2010s to have the orange jerseys full-time at home. So outside of some very, very minor tweaks, this is the first change to the uniforms that the Denver Broncos have had since going to the new kind of charging Bronco logo in the mid 90s. when Broncos ownership was actually threatening to leave Denver. So they redid the logo and the jerseys and all of that to remove the elements of Denver. Again, remember, the Bronco used to be jumping out of a big D for Denver. That was removed from the logo as part of the ownership threats to take the team out of Denver, saying, see, look, our branding isn't even tied to the city anymore. We could leave whenever we want. I didn't like this change, and I don't think a lot of people liked this change when it was first announced. It was announced as a 2-year rebrand. It took a long time to do it. It seemed like a lot of appetite for a throwback, to go back to that old, Bronco jumping out of the D logo to really tie things back to the city and to just get that identity back with Denver. And you know how people love nostalgia, especially modernized nostalgia. So when this was the release, it was a little disappointing for some people. Just they're really basic. There's not a lot to them. Very kind of modern minimalist, and the design that's on the shoulder was, kind of pitched as, oh, it looks like a mountain range. But then they came out later and said, no, actually, I'm sorry, it's based off the hair that's on the Bronco's back on the logo, or on his neck on the logo. So I don't know. It didn't. Not a lot of people liked them. They seemed like a little bit of a miss. I'm going to be honest. I thought seeing the full kit all together on Sunday, I really liked him. I thought this is my immediate thought was, wow, this was a major upgrade over what they had. They're clean. They look modern. I think the striping is done well. And they wore the all white kit, white jersey, white pants, white socks. They didn't wear the white helmets, which you can see here on the screen. But I just thought it looked really clean. I thought it made me realize how clunky and old school that big stripe down the side really looked on the old uniforms. And I wanted to call that out because these jerseys got dragged pretty good when they were first released. And I thought they were a win. I thought they were a win in that debut on Sunday. I'm anxious to see this upcoming week, what the dark kits will look like. I'm assuming they'll go with the orange and navy blue at home, but I think this was an upgrade, and now I'm just anxious to see that white helmet. And then, of course, they did do the throwback jerseys that will be worn twice this season. But if this is what we're staring at for the foreseeable future for the Broncos, I think it was a win. And sometimes you need to see the full kit in order to fully appreciate what the redesign can look like. And I think this is a great example of that, where the jerseys themselves maybe don't look great, but you put the whole thing together, I think it's a really clean look. I can see why they went with this one. So great job, Broncos design team. You did it. All right, let's shift on over to the NHL. The NHL, and we've got some drama unfolding in the offseason. I just talked about it last week right here on this show, that this is the toughest time of the NHL calendar because you are far enough away from the draft and free agency, but still too far from the start of the regular season. You are in off-season purgatory. There is nothing going on, and you're really just kind of sitting around. The guys who are still out there available on free agency aren't really that interesting. Don't really move the needle for you. It's kind of PTO stuff. No one's making trades. But wouldn't you know it, we wake up this morning and the St. Louis Blues, Doug Armstrong, general manager, chooses violence by extending not just one, but 2 offer sheets to Edmonton Oilers restricted free agents Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. Now, what's a restricted free agent? How is that different from an unrestricted free agent? Why does this matter? Teams can sign free agents all the time. Let me tell you why. In the NHL, there are 2 types of free agents: unrestricted and restricted. Unrestricted free agents, when their contract expires, they are free to sign with whomever they want for however much they want for however long they want. There are no restrictions on it. The only advantage that a team who has a pending unrestricted free agent has before that player officially hits the open market at the expiration of their contract, that team that has them can sign them to a 1 additional year longer contract. The max contract on the open market is 7 years. The max contract for a player that you are signing to return to your team is 8 years. Other than that, unrestricted free agents, it's a free-for-all. They can do whatever they want. Restricted free agents are players whose contract expires but either don't meet a certain age or games played threshold, and they are due for a new contract, are allowed to re-sign with their team, and are allowed to hear offers from other teams, but their existing team has the unequivocal right to match that offer within 7 days. So essentially, it's best way to think of it is like a right of first refusal, right? So it's typically reserved for young players because, like I said, it's an age or games played threshold that makes you a restricted free agent. So usually these are young players and they're due for new contracts, but teams don't really worry about it because they are under what most refer to as team control. We're really the only ones you can negotiate with. And if you negotiate with anyone else, well, if you find terms that make sense for you, we can just pick up those terms, sign our name on the dotted line. And now all those negotiations you do with another team are ours. We got you, contract signed. So it's a little bit of a different situation. However, as I was just saying, you can negotiate with other teams. Other teams can make you not a contract offer, but they can give you an offer sheet, which is essentially what I was just describing. Hey, we negotiated. We found terms that work. We're going to give you an offer sheet for you to take back to your existing club for them to look over the terms of the deal that we've negotiated and see if they want to match that. For obvious reasons, this almost never happens. It can be viewed as somewhat contentious. A GM kind of doing another GM dirty because there's supposed to be this level of like mutual respect that, hey, we're trying to figure something out with this player. You can't really sign him. We'll just offer it if you match it to him anyways. So a lot of GMs kind of take it as a slight. There's only been 2 successful offer sheets in the salary cap era, which started in 2005, in case you forgot. It just doesn't happen very often. Not a lot of teams see much upside to it, and you've got to really get a team in a tough salary cap spot to the point where they can't match your contract offer. So when the St. Louis Blues come out this morning and say that they've extended 2 offer sheets, not only to 2 different players, but to 2 different players on the same team, it's a bit of a big deal. The offer sheet offered by the St. Louis Blues to Philip Broberg, 2 years, 4.5 AAV. And then for Dylan Holloway, 2 years, 2.2 AAV. The one last rule, I guess is the right word for this, is if the St. Louis Blues are successful and the Edmonton Oilers choose not to match these offers within 1 week, the St. Louis Blues must give the Edmonton Oilers draft pick compensation. So more or less, this becomes a trade. Because the Edmonton Oilers have these players as right of first refusal, the league gives those teams compensation if they are signed away on an offer sheet. So if the Edmonton Oilers choose not to match these deals, they would receive a 2nd-round pick as compensation for Philip Broberg and a 3rd-round pick as compensation for Dylan Holloway. So it's not like the Edmonton Oilers would walk away empty-handed, but I can guarantee you when Stan Bowman signed on to be the GM just a couple weeks ago, he probably didn't have this on his bingo card that 2 of his high-end young players were going to be getting an offer sheet, and Edmonton is tight up against the salary cap, and they are staring down a Leon Draisaitl extension, which will come in well in excess of $13 million. We have not seen something like this in the NHL in my time covering the league, nor in my time watching the league, which started about 27 years ago. So this is a big deal in the hockey space. Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway, like I said, 2 strong, solid young players. That would be a big pickup for the St. Louis Blues in the Central Division, same division as the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm gonna be watching this one closely. I think the Edmonton Oilers will likely match on one of those. I don't know if they can match on both. I just don't think they've got almost $7 million to make this work. But we'll see. Stan Bowman, new GM of the Edmonton Oilers, is going to have his hands full as things kick off here. As we get closer to the stories, get closer to the season, not closer to the stories, and things ramp up for him. Let's talk Olympics, round out this Olympic season. Just a couple quick things. Now, I don't have any stats or anything for you for Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles was a 2-time medalist at these Olympic Games, a gold medal in the men's 100 meter and then a bronze medal in the men's 200 meter. He was favored in the men's 200 meter, but as you guys remember, we reported here on this show and was reported everywhere else. Noah Lyles woke up at 5 a.m. that morning with COVID. Brutal COVID, a brutal case of COVID, I should say. He said he felt weak, achy, had the chills, had a fever, was coughing, and still went and captured a bronze medal in the men's 200 meter. Now, USA basketball and NBA fans everywhere took that as an opportunity to dunk on Noah Lyles. After the Boston Celtics, or I actually believe this was about a year ago, after the Denver Nuggets had won the NBA championship, Noah Lyles very publicly came out and said, why do they call themselves world champions? World champions of what? Calling out the fact that the NBA is a North American league that only features one non-US based team, yet NBA teams and players refer to themselves as world champions after winning the NBA championship. Now, look, I get it. I understand the sentiment behind why NBA teams and players call themselves that. It's the best basketball league in the world. No doubt about it. I don't think that you need a tournament or anything to prove that. I think everybody knows the best best basketball players in the world come to North America to play in the NBA. Duh. Same with the NHL. In soccer, you've got the EPL over in Europe, those are the best soccer players, best football players. FUTBOL. Like that, no one's arguing those facts. But to call yourself a world champion, I can understand why an athlete like Noah Lyles, who almost exclusively competes on the international stage at world championships, at Olympic Games, things like that, would say, you're not world champs. You're not playing teams from around the world. I agree with Noah Lyles. It drives me insane. NBA, NFL, and MLB all do this. Refer to themselves as the world champions after winning their professional league title. I guess I don't understand what's wrong with saying we're the NBA champions. Everyone knows it's the best league in the world. The NFL one drives me the craziest because Super Bowl teams call themselves world champions, and it's like, hey, really no one else plays this sport. A little bit in Australia, a little bit in Germany, used to in Amsterdam, but like there was a lot of North American guys who were playing over there. I'm with Noah Lyles. It drives me nuts that those leagues call themselves world champions. To me, like, again, the NBA would win. They would absolutely smoke them. But like, cool. If you want to do that, do a summer series with whoever the second best league is, whoever is widely considered the second best league, and do a 7-game series and sweep them 4-0 and beat them by 50 points in every game and say, see, look, we'll play anybody. We'll play against anybody and we'll win. We'll prove we're the world champions. We'll win that title. I just think otherwise, call yourself the NBA champions, NBA final champions, whatever you want. We all know it's the best league in the world. And also, by the way, for all the fans that were trying to dunk on Noah Lyles, the dude won 2 medals, including a gold. So he won. And by the way, I saw a community note on X, on USA Basketball posted a picture of Team USA, all with their gold medals. And it said, are we world champs now? And there was a community note that said, no, these are Olympic champions. the FIBA World Championships are held in non-Olympic summers. And I thought that was hilarious. Let's talk about Jordan Chiles, sticking with the Olympics here. Again, we don't need to fully rehash this one, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out here on this. So Jordan Chiles, on the floor routine, during the floor routine finals, Jordan Chiles was the last athlete to go. And after she went, her total score placed her fourth. So it was disappointing. She was sad. Coaches apparently filed a grievance to have it was a spin looked at, saying that in the semifinals, Jordan Chiles did not get full credit for completing a 180 spin, even though she did. So knowing that had happened in the qualifying round, Jordan Chiles' coaches went to the judges and said, hey, we want to make sure that you guys got this spin correct. According to the coaches, they hadn't. According to the judges, they hadn't. And so they made the adjustment. Jordan Chiles got a 10th of a point back, and that moved her into third place for the bronze medal. And it was hard for me because there was, in that moment, Ana Barbosu, who had a score of 3.7 and was in third place, was celebrating she had gotten up onto the floor and was, sorry, my wife decided to just start making all the noise. Was up on the floor celebrating with her flag, with her coaches, thinking that she had just won a bronze medal for Romania. She has the Romanian flag draped around her shoulders. It was a great scene. And then they come over the PA and announce that no, Jordan Chiles is actually third place. She's the bronze medalist. And right next to Ana Barbosu, Jordan Chiles and her coach start celebrating, as they should. That's not on them. But it was hard because it was a gut-wrenching moment for Ana and Romanian gymnastics. So you go through the whole medal ceremony. You have that heartbreaking moment for Barbosu, and you imagine that she likely, that was probably a pretty tough day. If you just finish fourth, you say, man, that sucks. Let's go out and get a drink. We'll go hang out in the village. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I barely missed the podium. That sucks. But to have the thrill and the rush of thinking you won an Olympic medal, beginning that celebration, then having that taken away, then Jordan Chiles gets to go through the entire night, have that, iconic moment that will be shared for years of Jordan Chiles and Simone Biles. Isn't this crazy, by the way? Jordan Chiles, Simone Biles, Noah Lyles. We've talked about them all on recent shows, and it drives me crazy every time I have to transition from one to the other because I feel like I'm trying to rhyme there. I feel like Dr. Seuss reporting the sports news, but that is just interesting to me. I've mentioned 3 U.S. Olympians here in the last 4 minutes: Noah Lyles, Jordan Chiles, Simone Biles. That's even like conspiracy theory level shit. So she gets to go through the whole night, have that iconic photo, celebrate with her team, go out, celebrate the night, celebrate her medal. What a moment. And then 2 days later, those same judges come back and say, wait a minute, hold on. Your grievance wasn't filed in time. And what they said was your grievance was filed 4 seconds late. 4 seconds. Look, my issue with this is on the judges. What should have happened is you should have either at the time, in the moment, said we have 2 third place bronze medal winners. Jordan Chiles and Anna Barbosu. That's what you should have done. And you didn't do that. You took away the moment from one athlete. You gave it to another, whatever. If that's what the rule said, whatever. But now to go back through and say, no, Jordan Chiles, you have to give your medal back. We're going to give it to someone else. The moment is gone. I'm sure Anna Barbosa, yes, she'd love to have a medal and say she got third place, but she probably wanted the moment to be on that Olympic stage and be having a medal placed around her neck and be on the podium. Like that's the moment. That's awesome. And you have that taken away. And now Jordan Chiles' team is once again filing a motion saying, no, we actually got it in 13 seconds with 13 seconds to spare. And it's now turned into this whole sideshow of who got it, who didn't, who actually placed, what were the scores. When they caught the mistake, they should have just said, we missed the opportunity to award 2 medals the first time. We're not going to do it again. Both bronze medals to both athletes, and just stop the sideshow and stop dragging this on. Stop putting these athletes through this, this bad gauntlet and sideshow that has become an overwhelming spotlight. So we'll see what comes of this. I believe Jordan Chiles right now is still technically the bronze medalist while the dispute is ongoing, but we'll see. It does, however, have an effect on the total medal count, the overall medal count, which again, I'm going to kind of briefly fly through here because I'm running long, but quickly, we mentioned yesterday, Liv Moods mentioned yesterday, the U.S. and China tied with 40 gold medals apiece. And I mentioned earlier, it was a historic tie. This was the first time ever in Olympic history, Summer Olympic history, that 2 nations have tied for the most gold medals. I think that's like, that almost seems statistically improbable to me, that this is the first time in all these years that you have 2 countries that tie 40 gold medals apiece. It was the 3rd most Olympic medals ever for the U.S. At an Olympic Games. There's only been 2 times, including Rio in 2016, where the U.S. finished with more medals than they did in this Olympics. And let's wrap things up here, Jay. What Olympic Games do we have to look forward to here? Well, the Paris Olympiad is not quite done, as we have the Paralympics coming up here in about 2 weeks. The Paralympics will be taking place at a lot of the same venues that we saw for the Olympics. Paralympic Games are always a fun kind of second wave of, oh, dang, this is all still going on. Peacock is going to have a lot of that same type of coverage. Then in 2 years, just 2 years, folks, 2026, the Winter Olympic Games are going to Milan, Italy. I am already beyond excited for this. The NHL is going back to the Olympic Games. We will have a true best-on-best tournament at the Olympics for ice hockey, which is something we haven't seen in over a decade. So I'm looking forward to it so much. And then the Olympic flag has arrived in Los Angeles as the 2028 Summer Olympic Games. The preparations are already underway in LA with venues that'll be all across the city, including the old Staples Center and Crypto.com Arena, the new dome just built for the LA Clippers, as well as they will have a couple events taking place canoeing in Oklahoma City, in the same way that Paris had surfing going on in Tahiti. Quick note, in the LA 2028 games, we will see the return of baseball, softball, and the debut of flag football, which right now it looks like the NFL is planning on participating in. With that, breakdancing, the event that has gone viral, which I'll maybe talk about later this week. I was reading some funny information about that viral dancer from Australia. that will be removed from the 2028 Summer Olympic Games in LA. But there we go. There are your next three. We got the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris, which will round out that the 33rd Olympiad there. In 2 years, we're in Italy for the Winter Olympic Games, then here on U.S. soil in LA in 2028. Looks like we've got one super chat here from Cedric. USA still on top for most medals as a whole. They absolutely ran away with it. I believe it was like 30 medals more than the next closest country, which was China. Yes, the U.S. ran away in total medal count, as we figured they probably would, but the first time in history that two nations tied at the top. That's going to do it, folks. Like I said, I apologize, ran a little bit long here today, but there's just always stuff to talk about. We always got stuff to say. That's going to do it for me. I'm Jesse Montaño. Got Jay here running the board. I'll be back at noon talking more Avs and NHL from the home studio. We got fun content coming to you guys later, as well as the Denver Broncos are hosting some members of the media to taste and see all the new food items happening at the stadium or coming to the stadium this year. For Jay and my wife standing right off screen, I'm Jesse Montaño. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. We'll see you later.